want to take a photo, take it during the first 30 seconds while I'm asking the first question, because after that, we would like our artists to concentrate. As you know, I don't have to tell you, we have Tori Amos and Samuel Adamson. Creators of this new musical, The Light Princess. How many of you have seen it already? Yeah! Okay, that's pretty good. And therefore you know it's a very good new piece. The National Theatre rarely does this, but sometimes when it does it, they do it very well. But I had a question earlier, which I'll share with you. About 3 or 4 years ago, there was a benefit dinner for the National Theatre, at which a couple of songs and scenes from forthcoming shows were performed. And there was a song from The Light Princess, and there was a song from London Road. Well, since then, London Road has opened, transferred, and closed. And the director has become the new director of the National Theatre. My question is, what have you been doing all those years?
I don't think that's very long, actually, to be honest. I think we've both been doing other things. We've both been working on other projects. I think probably most people know that the show was delayed. And I think that kind of thing is quite common in the development of the musical. It's just that I think possibly because Tori Amos was the composer, there was a bit of press interest in that, which meant that it got out. But it was the best thing for the show. We weren't quite ready. We'd done a series of workshops, and they had been successful, but we weren't quite where we needed to be. And so Nicholas Heitner, in his wisdom, said to us, we're going to delay it, and I want you to go away and do more work on it. And in fact, that was a really liberating and challenging thing for both Tori and me. And we went away and we completely reconceived the show. So that's part of the reason where the song that Tori sang at that function is still in school.
Now, Tori, I have to ask what that advice from Nick Heitner did to your confidence. Did it help or hinder that you were asked to delay for a couple of years?
I think it's the best thing that happened to us. You wouldn't be seeing the show you're seeing. It was a different show. Sam went away and rewrote the book, and a lot of the songs did change. But Nick said to us, you have an opportunity here at the National to really challenge people and to write a musical that isn't dumbing it down, so that it's for 4 years old to 94. I'm saying to you both, go away and write something challenging that questions the relationship within a family. And so that's what we did.
Of course, there's a third member of this author team, and that is George MacDonald, who wrote the original fairy story. Whose interest was piqued by this? Who read that story and thought, oh, I want to do something about this?
The impetus for the musical came from Tori, and she can tell you exactly how she discovered it. She certainly read that story and saw something in it, and it spoke to her. We've taken some fairly radical departures from the MacDonald. His kind of central ideas remain, the central metaphor about a girl who needs to feel sorrow in order to be an adult, in order to be complete, in order to face the world. That's his idea, and we've held on to that, and we've held on to some of the beautiful and elegant things in the fairy tale that we like. And as well as that, we've hopefully radically reimagined the story. We found that actually the central character in the original story wasn't particularly dramatic, because she's not only light of body, but she's also light-hearted and light-minded. And that latter thing was particularly problematic when we were writing a piece of drama, because light-mindedness is not particularly interesting. Characters need to want things, and they need to want them so much that they have to pursue them, and they need to meet obstacles on the way. And the character in MacDonald doesn't really do that. It's a beautiful piece of prose, but it's not particularly dramatic. So that's another reason for the years that it's taken, is that actually we had to go on a journey to find out who she was and what lightness meant, why she was liked, what it was she wanted from the world, and how she spoke to the world that we live in.
It's so interesting because when I heard the title, The Light Princess, I thought first of radiance, meaning like the sun, shining. But Tori, you believe this does now relate to the character.
We wanted everybody to resonate with her in the 21st century. And so we wanted to write a story that reminded us of our favorite elements of teenage girlness. And sometimes, as Sam says, it's truculent. It can be difficult. It can push all your buttons. But it can also make you think in a different way if you allow yourself to listen to what they are trying to tell you. And so we felt that a light princess also would need to have to experience darkness in order to become an adult. And that was really part of our journey.
You must be asked in every interview, but nonetheless it must be asked for the record, how did you two come to work together?
Well, we were put together by the National, actually. Tori came to the National with her idea to make The Light Princess into a musical, and I was working here at the time with a play at Cotslow. And Tori came to see it, and happily she liked it, and we met, and we got on. And I think probably that's the most important thing when you're writing a musical, because it's such a collaborative form. And so that's how it started. We were put together by the National.
And they put us together with somebody called Mary Ann Elliott. So they were putting together teams of people, different composers with different directors, with different book writers, lyricists. And we just happened to get put together, and we stayed together.
Well, during which time, Mary Ann Elliott has become just about the hottest director in town, with War Horse and The Curious Incident, among others. What's it been like to have her grow in stature while you're doing the show together?
Well, because we've been working with her, Sam's been working with her for a long time, but we started working with her at least 5 years ago. And so we've all been on this canoe in the Pacific Ocean. And some of us will get off on islands and do other projects. Sam will go to other plays, and Mary Ann will direct another show, and I'll go to a record and a tour. And then we all get back together in this canoe, and we're back in the Pacific Ocean again. And that's been our 5 years together.
It has. I mean, obviously Mary Ann's done extraordinary work, but the thing about Mary Ann is that she's really only interested in the job she's doing at the time, and the job that she's doing at the time is the most important thing to her, and she works incredibly hard on that. So in a way, the Mary Ann Elliott of it all is not really the issue. The issue is that she's a very committed, intelligent, and challenging director, and she's challenged us as writers because she doesn't let one word or even note actually go by without questioning why it's there. So she's been an incredible inspiration and guide.
For those of you who've seen the show, you know that the lead performer, Rosalie Craig, gives a career performance we will all remember for the rest of our lives. And yet I have to admit that when I first saw this program, and I bet you 80% of the people thought it was a picture of you.
That's very kind of you, but I'm your mother.
But I'm sure you will agree with me that this woman, who can be radiant, as we've been talking, and sing upside down, is one of the most astonishing performers we have seen.
And isn't it amazing how she's always been here? She's been on the London stage for many years and doing great work. She's been doing great, great work. So this is not, you know, Cowboy, this is not her first rodeo. So know that. But this is where she's been able to show all of us. Each time we work with her, just there's another astonishing thing that she's able to do when they're slinging her around and she's hitting, you know, perfect E, and like with a bell-like tone. And you think, well, wait a minute. it's really important that Sam and I tell all of you, she's worked very hard to get here. You're not able to do that because you just want to do it. It's not enough as it sounds. I mean, she's really put
She has. She's done a lot of training outside of the rehearsal room. It's quite interesting because she's been with us for a while actually. She was part of the original workshop. And she was playing another role, the role that no longer exists. And she was sort of staring us in the face for a long time, and we didn't have a Light Princess, we didn't have an Althea. And then sort of one day, literally, we all kind of looked at each other and went, is she staring us in the face? And so Rosa came in and sang a couple of songs for us, and we just thought, you know, there she was the whole time. So she's part of the DNA of the show, and because she's been cast as Althea for some time, Tori and I have been able to write specifically for her, which is a real luxury as a writer, because it's very rare that you know exactly who's going to be in something. So we've known what she's capable of, but she's also surprised us daily with how game she is to do anything. So we're very lucky.
You'll notice from the credits, music and lyrics by Tori, book and lyrics by Sam. Well, obviously that means overlap lyrics. Now, Sam, pardon me, you're not previously known as a lyricist. Tori, you're not previously known for collaborating on that.
Yeah, but that's very true. So, what does that say to you? The bard here, I was blown away by his ability. And over the years, we found our style together. And I would say it's a real partnership. I mean, he's involved in this score. He'll come to me and say, are you kidding? There are no lyrics to this? Why not? And I'll say, because it's underscore. You say, let's make it a song. And so, if it's narrative, Sam's all over it. As some of you know, I'm not bad with a hook, so that's our collaboration. But it is a marriage.
You know, it says book and lyrics by me, but the reality is that Tori is as much part of the book as I am as well. I mean, I think the thing about Tori is that she... It's true. Because the thing is that she's a... Take it. She's a...
This is not what the theater's going to be like.
She's a narrative composer. What I mean is I don't really think Tori's capable of writing music or writing a song unless she knows exactly where it's coming from, what the story is, what the kind of narrative is. And as a lot of you know, a lot of her songs are quite epic, and narrative is very important to them. So we would spend days, weeks talking about the story and the characters and what it was that we wanted to say, what we wanted our musical to be about. And we do a lot of story exploration before we started to write. So I think we're both part of each other's world.
I have lived through three great identifiable phases of the musical. One was the high point of Broadway, which generated songs for the hit parade, shows through My Fair Lady to West Side Story to Hair, and then it stopped because the young audience completely went over to rock and roll and popular music. And then, in the 1980s, the shows of Tim Rice, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and those produced by Cameron McIntosh took over the world musical stages, all from this country. But then, in the mid-90s, something happened that was very interesting in New York, which was that first Rent, and then really in a big way, Wicked, engaged a younger audience again. And this was an audience that was not interested in the pop chart phenomena of hip-hop and grunge, but they were actually into the musicals again. And perhaps because Wicked was focused on a young woman who was an underdog who came through, teenage girls really found this play applicable to them. And when I was sitting out here a couple of nights ago, I felt that vibe in the audience. I felt that young women were responding to this. This was in the tradition of this recent phenomenon. Do you feel that you've tapped into something?
Well, we hope that women, men of all ages, of all sexualities, of races, of different religions and different experiences relate to our piece. Because really the idea of both Alfie and Digby is that they're responding differently to a tragedy. And we all respond differently, don't we? We do respond differently. And sometimes we're judged by the way that we respond, or the way that we act, or the way that we are, or something we choose. Maybe because we choose to follow a certain path. A part of our family doesn't want or accept us. And I think everybody here has had some kind of experience with that in their way. And so we wanted our story to resonate with all kinds of situations. So not just teenage girls, but with all kinds of people, all ages, from all kinds of different backgrounds.
I noticed a couple of times in the staging that the men were moving in a way that I associated with the choreography of the Les Miserables era. And did you have any input at all into the choreography, or did you notice this?
No, I didn't notice that, to be honest. It's interesting. I think Stephen Hoggett is the choreographer, and I think the key to his work, and I don't want to give it away to people who haven't seen it, but the key to his work really is the work that he does with the people surrounding Althea. I don't want to give the secret away, but there's a unique means by which she floats, and it is choreographic and balletic. And in a way, I think that's the heart of Stephen's work on this show.
He found a language.
He found a language for that. I mean, there's the Prince character Digby, it comes from a kind of military world, so there's a sort of military feeling and language to the way he moves. Is that what you mean? That he's a soldier?
I think so.
Yeah.
And the boys know I had to have a guy in a uniform come.
All the fantasies come to life.
So did I, by the way.
Which means it's time for me to ask Tori, what brought you to stage work? You have been an atypical popular artist in the manner of Sting, who does a lot of different things and has engaged with the theater. But what made you want to engage with the theater?
Well, when I was little, my mom would play me all kinds of records, and part of her collection was musical theater. And so that got in my brain as a kid. And then I went on to other things, but at a certain point, when I had a child, my mother would be weaving around me, saying, remember the musical genre? And I'd be kind of thinking, and I started watching a lot of musicals again with my daughter when she was little. And I think the muses plant seeds. I don't know how your seeds got planted, but you've been flirting with musical theater for quite some time.
Yes, and I think the thing is that if you're writing musicals, you need to embrace the form and embrace the history of the form, look at what people have done. There's absolutely no point in resisting musicals if you're writing one, because the idea of the musical is the story is taken by song. And I think Tori understood that from the beginning. As I said, I think there's something about Tori's work which operates in that fashion anyway. Often in her albums she creates complete worlds and characters. So I think it's a kind of natural extension of some of the things that she's been doing. And in addition to that, it's also been a challenge for both of us to find the language and find the musical language. And in fact, early versions of the show had much more dialogue, and we've moved more and more towards something that's almost through song.
But it was his idea. He would come to me and say, we're getting rid of this dialogue in this form, and let's put it to song. And I would just say, oh my God, you can't be serious. We're not going to sing that. Meaning, are we really going to sing that? And he'd go, yeah, we're going to sing that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is 12 minutes long. And he said, build a cathedral. I'm thinking,
The thing about Tori is that she writes I mean, she talks about underscoring. I mean, that did happen quite a lot, that she'd write a piece of underscoring for a scene, and the tune would be so great, electric, addictive, that I just think to myself, well, why isn't this being sung? So, and I suppose I challenged her and myself to sort of take whole scenes and think about musicalising a whole scene. So, in fact, the turning point really after the delay was that, and we wrote 2 big sequences, one in Act 1 and one in Act 2. They're both in the show. One's called Queen Material and one's called Nothing More Than This. And they're both fairly extensive musical tone poems where lots happens narratively and where music never ceases. And I was really, really excited by that kind of storytelling and as music as the engine.
And I was excited that I knew what a sequence was by the end of it.
Well, both of you managed to capture the essence of what music is supposed to do in the show, which is to move the show forward rather than have a standalone moment where we stop the show and let one of the stars belt out a big ballad. Were there any songs that had to be knocked on the head because they didn't move things along?
We have a thing called the vault. And there are many songs in the vault. And it's not because we didn't love them, but because all kinds of reasons. People got killed off, they don't exist anymore, so their song was gone. I mean, sometimes we'll look at each other and we'll start humming, and we'll think, oh, didn't we love that? Yeah, but he's dead. There's so many dead people that we thought we could make a whole double album of the songs that didn't make the Light Princess. Yay!
Well, you've got an audience for it.
I think that's a key thing, though, which is that it is about making sure that story is always being told. And I think you can afford moments where someone's just doing something purely emotional, a big love moment or something, where a character expresses how they feel and just swirls around in that emotion. But actually, even in musicals, you can't do that too often. You can probably only do that about once or twice in each act, and the rest of the time, the story needs to be moving forward.
I've only read 2 nasty reviews of this. Fortunately, all the other ones are good. But they're from 2 right-wing newspapers, which have said there are too many issues addressed in the show. Did you expect that might happen?
Nick Heitner called it. He said, hopefully you'll get it, and it will be your badge of honor if you get a 1 star. So we feel like we have our badge of honor.
Again, I go back to Evita, when that opened in New York after having been a huge hit here. And Clive Barnes, the reviewer for the New York Times, did not review the music. He could only say, you can't have a musical about a fascist dictator. In other words, he was objecting to the subject matter of the piece. And that particular review that you're talking about was objecting to the subject matter of the piece from a political point of view. How can you have these issues in a musical? It's a real challenge, isn't it?
I mean, I think that's just a weird snobbishness then to the form, because there's absolutely no reason why as a form it can't take on any issue. I mean, the curious thing I think about musicals actually on the whole is that their plots do need a sort of simplicity or straightforwardness to them, because the music provides all of the kind of subterranean depth and emotion. So the music is always a complex thing. And the other reason, presumably Clive Barnes didn't go anywhere near the score, is because he didn't understand it on a first listening. I mean, that's the other thing about a piece of brand new music, and you only hear it once. I mean, music, it needs to be heard more than once. So the snobbishness, you know, it's interesting that somebody might say that there are too many issues. I think that's really exciting. There's absolutely no reason why a musical can't take on every issue in the world. And at the same time, there's a kind of other kind of snobbery, which is that sometimes musicals are too simplistic, and that is not true either, because, as I said, I think the score is often the place where the depth lies.
I'm very pleased to hear that you have a very healthy box office for this run. And it could be interesting being here every day to see the changing complexion, because I'm sure that a lot of the early ticket buyers were fans of yours and wanted to buy anything you were saying.
Not necessarily, because some, and thank you, some did not. But the National does a thing whereby, if you're a member, you get the cushy seats. So you get first pick if you're a member. So there were a bit of those, and I have to say there were some of them that you know, weren't okay with our gay and lesbian shout out. They weren't okay with that. Some of our more possibly right-wing in the early days, but they seem to have gone now.
And the show now generates its own audience because it becomes an entity that people can identify. Will it have life longer than this current run here?
Well, you don't know, do you? All you can do, and we've discussed this, was focus on every performance. And now we're not here. We're sort of like mom and pop that have to go away.
The kids warming up in the background.
There they are. And we're handing it over now to the public. And, of course, to them first, but also to you all. And it has to go where it wants to go and be what it wants to be, and we trust in it. And we trust in it, that it will go where it should go.
Sam has worked in the different houses of the National Theatre, and I'm wondering if you were the one who thought this was the right theatre, or was that a Nick Heitner choice?
I think it probably came from Marianne, actually. I think what she wanted to do, as you can see, it's a fairy tale, it's a musical. It begins with the words "Once Upon a Time." That's the genre and form that it exists in, and I think she always felt that the pros here had a kind of picture book quality. And you'll see when you see the show that Ray Smith has really responded to that. So I think it was about finding the best space for the show, and the show is a fairy tale. It's like opening a book and reading stories. So that's the reason we're in the more traditional space of the three.
I, of course, recognize some of her touches, such as the mouse. There is a mouse, ladies and gentlemen. And that's not giving away too much. But that's almost like the duck in War Horse. The audience responds to that. It's cute. But also the influence of, I thought, Julie Taymor, who changed musicals with The Lion King and really made them more visual. And the scenery is just absolutely gorgeous and contributing to the meaning of the show.
Well, Ray Smith, who also designed War Horse and comes from opera, some of you know her work. I encourage you to look her work up if you're a visual artist, or if you're not and you're just interested in visual art. I can't draw to save my life, but Ray and I have had endless conversations. She'll go sit in the pit so that she can see, and I'll look at her drawing so I can hear. And that's how we've been engaged with each other for years now. She'll just say, play me some music, just play me music. And sometimes I'll just sit up at a piano, Sam and I will gather around, and we'll be singing and playing and talking her through it. She would come over to your house when we were doing our rewrites, and she would just sit and listen. And then for us, we would go and look, stare, study. She would show us all kinds of things, drawings, and then we'd go off, get another idea. And that's been the collaborative, that's the world Marianne set up for the creative team. It's really important to talk about the creative team for a minute, because that's the core of the musical creativity, where disciplines are coming together. Now, some people will tell you that some creative teams are warring, or have been, and that happens and you hear about it. This is my first experience, and I couldn't have had a more, what would you say, Sam? Open-minded. We don't always agree with each other, but it was about who knew their own mind in the moment and was able to maybe open our minds. And it came from the puppeteers one day, it came from the animator the other day, it came from sound one day, it came